My name is Leos Drbohlav. I assume that everybody already know who I am. That's why you're here. Otherwise, you would not spend your valuable time. Today we're here to talk about narcotic detection. As a matter of fact, detection in general. Whether it's narcotic or explosive, it doesn't matter. There is some similarities between narcotics and detection, and obviously there are some things that are completely different when it comes to explosive detection. So today we're going to be focusing on narcotic detection for the law enforcement, and which we know most of it is traffic stops. Very rarely we go do search warrants. Once we have search warrants anyway, it's a lot of hands-on searching and all that. But vast majority of work is traffic stops, and that's where the bread and butter is in law enforcement in the United States anyway. The reason I have decided when Wayne asked me what I would like to talk about is detection. Everybody's talking about biting, all that stuff. Detection is very important, but what nobody talks about, I see a lot of instructors out there doing detections, being proud of final indications on those pop-up boxes or toys like that, or walls. But where we see the biggest issue is when you come from the handler course, or the canine handler comes from the handler course and gets on the street, and all of a sudden it is nothing pretty like it was in a class or in the handler course, or when you train in your Tuesday trainings once a week, and you're running your dogs on a wall or boxes or anywhere in your training facility or your training vehicles. The traffic stops are all of a sudden not as pretty as we're used to in the regular training, and that bothers me a lot. I see it too often. So that's what I want to talk about today. Wayne, are we still good? Hello?
We are still good.
Okay, it's kind of weird that I don't have I don't see anything. Anyway, so to start with, I'm going to basically describe the entire process of building dog and narcotic detection for law enforcement. I'm going to go step by step. Is there any way, Wayne, that they can in the process ask questions?
Yes, in the chat they can type their question, and then when the question time's ready, we can relay it or you can read it.
Okay, great. So let me I don't know what how to do this, but I'm gonna play this video, just like a little intro, and then we'll get straight to my points and talking straight to the class. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Takes a while to get it to Australia. Okay, hold on. Let me play the video here. It looks so much different on a phone than on this laptop. Nevertheless, let's play this, okay? Can you see it?
You go click the share screen.
Okay, hold on. Are we on?
Yep, it's up there.
Will everybody hear me while this is going on?
Hear and see you.
Okay, great. So what we're looking for here, it's a dual purpose canine in Fayetteville Police Department. I came here, we did some tests, and it was the regular type of performance that we see on a street that are not really pretty to look at. Dog didn't really want to sniff vehicle at all. Was always interested about what's going on, sniffing grass along the road, looking at people. Handler was running in from him with the leash on. He tried to, back away real quick, motion around the vehicle, present in the vehicle. Had very big problem to keep the dog focused on the sniffing. And basically the dog is looking for or waiting for a big cloud of odor to hit him in the nose. And if it didn't, dog had absolutely no interest. This is a product of training, 4 weeks training. We have changed the training, and after 4 weeks, this is the result of that. So just for everybody to know, this is what took 4 weeks. The dog today is actually even way better. You still see that reaction, the final response wasn't as fast as it needs to be. Just so you know, there's 1 gram of meth in a Ziploc bag. Okay. Sorry, I'll get rid of this. Okay. So there was a 1 gram of meth in a Ziploc bag, and that's one of the first points that we need to understand, that we're law enforcement. Unless you have an interdiction, we're not going to be looking for 20 grams or 50 grams or kilo or all that. Most of our day-to-day basis work is going to be looking for users. So unless you have an interdiction where you're looking for big loads, our dogs have to be capable of locating smaller amounts. Starting with, let me start with the whole process now, step by step, how I built narcotic detection dog, in detection in general, specifically narcotic detection for law enforcement. What I would like to start with first thing, and then it's grossly neglected here around the world in general. People, I've heard so many times when people say don't do obedience on a detection dog. Even if you have a single purpose detection dog, people say don't do obedience. That's a first myth I'd like to bust here. You have to understand that obedience, if it's done properly, it's actually communication. You communicate with the dog. So when you do communication, when you do obedience correctly, you're teaching the dog communicate with you. You giving him the opportunity to learn your body language, everything around you, around the world. That's what communication or obedience is. It's communication. When you're on the street, it's very important that the dog understands you, because if the dog doesn't understand your body language, is confused out of you, he will always have that 30-40% of his mind focused on you, because you are not making really much sense. So the dog will always be worried about you. Now you already decreased your dog's ability to focus fully on searching that odor. So definitely, when I'm doing detection dog, I start with the dog has to understand a little bit communication. And especially those that are buying green dogs from overseas, those dogs are, especially nowadays, they are bred and raised by brokers in Europe. It's not what it used to be. Used to we had plenty of dogs that were raised by a one dog man, a family, or someone who was doing hobby. And those people understood dogs. They knew how to raise them. Those dogs already understood body language. They understood how to communicate with the human, what to think about, all that stuff. Nowadays, it's a mass production of dogs that are crazy on hunting, but don't have absolutely no other skills, especially communication skills. So then you have dogs that are either crazy on searching, and by training, we're going to talk about it a little bit later, by training, correcting them, jerking on them, yanking them, because you want to accomplish searching pattern, you put a lot of damage into the drive as well. So pay attention to communication. It's very simple. Wayne, we could probably maybe next time do a webinar on communication, how to properly start communication with the dog, because it's a huge lack out there. A lot of people are using training techniques for the sport, but that's not really meant, or it's no good for law enforcement, because sport is one type of behaviors that you just drill over and over and over again. You don't really need your dog to understand you. You need the dog to understand the program, not you. Law enforcement is a little bit different. Everything's going to be different. Everything changing all the time. You need the dog to understand you, because if not, it causes a lot of damage and a decrease in drive. You're using basically up to 50% of the potential of the dog, other than everything else goes down the drain. So once we have a dog that communicates and understands us, there's no longer issue in that. Then we have to decide what is the drive for the dog. Just to explain, I'm going to explain all these things. You will see just shortly here how it results in a dog that's interested. Basically, you get the product you saw on a video right now. Dog that is completely focused and is detailed, nothing distracts him for the search on whether it's vehicle or building or whatever that is. The dog knows exactly his job and is doing really good without you showing him and running around and do all kinds of stuff. By the way, that's where all the issues comes also, because this this running around and basically making your dog dependent on you, it's where comes all the cues and false alerting and all the mess. So we'll get to that real quick here. You need the dog to understand your body language, but at the same time, we're doing it so the dog doesn't have to be listening to your body language, so he can be focused fully on you. Does it make sense, Wayne? Never mind.
Yes.
Probably does. So let's go to reward on the sniff. What is the reward? You have to decide whether you're using hand drive or food drive. Dogs, as many of you know, entire Department of Homeland Security has started, ATF actually has started all dogs on food reward. There's many guys that are actually doing food reward. I'm not a big fan of food reward. I don't like that because the drive kind of changes with the momentality need of the dog. It's messy. It's just, I don't like that at all. However, you can use it to start teaching behaviors on your dog and then transfer to Kong or to prey drive. So if you have a green dog, or whether you have a puppy or a green dog bought from overseas, you have to determine what the reward is. I've seen a lot of guys working dogs on plastic pipe, Kongs, tugs, whatever that is. Just make sure it is what you like, what you prefer. I think it's a little bit unfortunate that some guys, people or offices go to handler school and they tell them, no, we work with plastic pipe. And before you know, you see all these dogs that have all their teeth busted out because they're trying to pick up a tiny plastic pipe from the ground. It doesn't matter what you guys use. You look what your dog likes and make that work. Don't worry about what the dog came from Europe, because hunt drive or prey drive is the same. So whether you throw in a pipe or tuck or ball or conch, whatever you want, use whatever you like, not what somebody told you to use. So now we go to the most important thing. And that is once we have established or recognized what the reward for the dog is, what the dog is most crazy after, and what's operationally best for us, I'm using a ball. And you'll see in the short video in here in a few minutes why I'm using ball, because to me it's operationally the best thing. Dogs like it, and I can reward absolutely safely even on an interstate without any issues. Somebody thinking like, no, if you throw a ball, it's gonna bounce off, it's dangerous. I don't throw a ball. We don't throw a ball. We give the ball to the dog, and I don't care how crazy and strong dog you have, it's still safe. And I'll show it to you on a video here in a second. I did this video actually today, real quick, just for these purposes. It's in front of a shopping center, a grocery store. All right, I've seen that. We also do indirect reward, which is that you stand behind a dog in a distance, and you give him release command. He's coming to get get the reward. I might have video on that too here. So here comes the little trick on dogs being interested in search. When you build in the desire of the dog to search for something, you usually start in the buildings. You hide stuff for the dog, whether it's conch or whatever. You hide his reward, or you let him search for it. Until now, everything is good. And then people start going into putting reward, or however they imprint an odor, into boxes and start leading the dog. Look, dogs, animals, wolves were designed to find whatever they're looking for. So all you have to do is to make sure that he wants to find what you're hiding away from him, and then just get out of his way. You are building two things when the dog is searching freely in the room where you're starting. Actually, more things. You build in his ability to search effectively. What I mean when I say effectively is, you've seen many dogs that you let them in the room and they go crazy. They are nuts. And then, so if you work it properly, which means always understand the level the dog is capable of finding, make it a little bit harder beyond that level, and let him be in that room. What's going to happen, dogs that are super fast in the nervous system, Belgian Malinois, some of them are super crazy. They run around open mouth, doing all that stuff. You let them be in that room until they find the ball. If he has to search for 20 minutes, so be it. What's going to happen is he's going to get tired, and he's going to start using his nose way more effectively than when he started. That will teach him to, and if you run it for a week, I promise you what you're going to see is that the dog will start slowing down and start being effective with the sniffing. So that's nervous system, very important. You have to understand what you're working with. German Shepherds, some are very slow, some very calm nervous system. Some mouse have lower drive, therefore also their nervous system it's kind of medium. And then you have some crazy dogs that are super fast. So the training will differ from type to type. Wayne, I think we're gonna talk about your little puppy that's super fast in nerves, and we can actually talk about how what's the solution to that. I think that your dog is food rewarded. I think I'm not sure. But
Yes.
yeah. So we will talk about that stuff, and there's so much stuff to say and to explain it. I don't know if it's are enough. Desire for the reward is one thing. Building of anticipation is another factor that adds to it, and also frustration. All these three things you have to understand. You have to see on the dog in order to build him the way you want to have the result. If somebody's interested in that, I can go a little bit deeper into it and explain it. Anyway, so first, letting the dog in that room to let him search it, until he finds it without helping. The biggest problem, the biggest issue with all the trainers I see out there is their desire to go out there and help the dog. I promise you, there's no wolf in the nature that needs you to go out there and help him catch a doe or deer. No wolf. Same thing with your dogs. Let them learn a lesson. Let them grow in their own process. That's the only way the dogs will change. What you build in by letting the dog to search, you build in also not only he will find a reward, but he will also be rewarded by self-accomplishment. And if you look at basic pyramid of needs, self-accomplishment is one very important aspect of training. So that will slow the dog down and will give him the experience, or give him the needs to use the nose. Before you know, the dogs will get way slower and way more methodical, and will start using their nose much more effectively rather than running around with open mouth. That being said, a lot of you are getting dogs, already have dogs that are fully trained, already imprinted their odors, and already running on the street. And they go like, and now you're going like, whoa, well, my dog is already fully trained. It doesn't matter. It does not matter. It's just like when you're boxing, you're already 2 times a world champion. You still go back every training and you work on your footsteps. You work on your jabs. You work on a body motion. You work on covers. You always go back to foundation, regardless how advanced you are. So even if you have fully operational dogs and printed and odors, always go back to foundation. That's just like in shooting. You can be tier 1 unit operator and you still go back to foundation when you train. That will significantly change your dogs. So now we have dog. Step 1, having dog searching for his reward on his own. You are working on his ability to focus. You're working on endurance. Endurance is super important. Why? Dogs have a clock in their hat. So if your regular search on a vehicle in your training is about 15 seconds or 20 seconds because you are using big odor hidden in a gas tank or behind a front reflector or in the front grill. It takes the dog about 10-15 seconds to go around the vehicle and the big odor hits him. So now you have your dog, you told him to look, to run and wait for the huge cloud of odor to hit him straight in the nose. Does he have any need to sniff any deeper than that? No, he does not. He runs around that. Another thing you just told him is once or twice around the vehicle, takes about 20 seconds maybe, and the search is done. So all your dogs now understand that within a 30 seconds, minute at the most, they will have the result. So now you want the dog to search a little bit longer. Time does not add up to the dog. He gets frustrated, and guess what happens? False alert, right? When dogs get frustrated, the same thing experience. Once you start taking dog around vehicle 2 or 3 times, dog already recognizes he's been there. Now he's smelling yourself again. That's another thing that builds a frustration in the dogs, and they just sit down. So be very careful on the amount of odor you train him with. That brings me into dog has to understand and be trained for general odor and source. Another thing that not a lot of people train. General odor is, I'll give you an example. If you have odor under the hood in the engine compartment, the odor is coming everywhere. It's coming left, right, front. The dog is running around the front part of the vehicle and doesn't really get where it's coming from. So those of you that train on source, when the dog has to sniff out the source in a seam, those dogs will have problem to make a call because they still looking for the seam where it's coming from. But guess what? There will be none found. So many dogs will actually leave without presenting a final alert because they could not find a source. On the other hand, if you're working on general odors, that means huge odor. I'm seeing guys running half a kilos, okay, which is absolutely insane. Even odors like 20-30 grams is insane. It's detrimental to your searching pattern, your speed, and everything. The dogs are trying to rush to something big, and if they smell just a little bit odor of something, they actually go like, "No, that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the big thing." But very often, that's all you're gonna get. And on the other hand, same thing. You have a vehicle that you have weed shake all over the car, or it's a dealer or user that's distributing. He's got about 10-15 grams. He's been dealing out of the car for months. The car is reeking with that odor. And you do traffic stop, you leave the window open, the odor is everywhere, right? So now the dog has to be able to make that call. So be careful. Always understand that you need to train with very small odors, like a gram, and then same thing with big odors. Dog has to be able to find a very small, I'd say almost residual on that vehicle, because sometimes that's all you get, especially new vehicles. If you have some odor inside a vehicle, inside a brand new vehicle, and all ventilation is closed, it's very difficult for the dog to get the odor. So dog has to be able to go from 0.5 grams to whatever big odor you can get out of the vehicle. So now I'm gonna go to the bottom line, what this webinar is about, and that is dogs' desire to search a vehicle on a traffic stop. The biggest lack in training being done here in US, not in US, in general, is the lack of generalization. So dogs, when we have dogs that are searching, we start in the dogs, getting them green, coming into a training, they searching very nice in the building. Now we go on to imprinting boxes or imprinting places. We teach them recognize the odor. We teach them to react to the odor. That means find an alert. Then we take them out on vehicles on training site. We create a situational signal, which the training site always look the same, always the same vehicle. So now the dog understands what we're doing. You also have to understand that your entire setup of where you are, how often you go to the same place, so on and so forth, creates the dog to understand the game, which is not the case when you patrolling. The thing's going to be always different. You have to understand also that when you're patrolling, you're pulling your dog out of the vehicle to break, to go to the office, to do play, to do all kinds of stuff. So your regular activity, pulling the dog out of the car, means a lot of things.
What are you doing?
I'm in a class. What y'all do?
Okay, I heard something. I don't know if it was meant for me. So the biggest thing that you have to pay attention is generalization. What I mean with generalization is, I'll give you an example on obedience. A lot of you saw that. If you're teaching a dog to lay down, especially trainers here, if you teach your dog to lay down, you always teach him in front of you, right? So when you tell the dog down, he's gonna lay down right next to you where you taught him. If the dog's gonna be 20 yards away from you, you tell him down, the dog will come all the way to you in front of you and lay down. Because that was the situational signal that we showed him. That's the picture we showed him before. If you want to teach him, if you want him to lay down where he is at even 20 yards away, you have to go back to explaining. And this is how animals learn, or this is how we teach. Explain, solidify, generalize, and bring the pressure. Okay, 4 things. Explain, solidify, generalize, bring the pressure. Explain is what it is, what is the game about. Solidify, repeat it so many times that it actually becomes muscle memory. Generalize is what I just said with the lay down. I'll give you an example. How many dogs know lay down perfectly away with you, away from you, but send the dog on the long stairways, and in the middle of the stairways, tell him lay down. Vast majority of dogs will either come back to you or make it all the way up on the top of the stairs and lay down. So again, you have to go back to explaining to get that result. And that same applies on narcotic detection or detection in general. Building, searching for something in the building, it gives some kind of picture. Searching something on the backyard gives some kind of picture. But then you bring him into a situation like in front of Walmart or on a interstate. It's a complete different picture for the dogs. Whether you believe it or not, it is completely different picture. So far, we have taught the dogs to recognize odor, but it has nothing to do with desire to search for the odor. Those are 2 completely different things. So what I'm seeing very, very often with brokers and trainers here is teaching the dog to recognize an odor, but that's not where the magic is. The magic is when the dog desires to find it. Because like I said at the beginning of this class, if the animal understands, or if the animal wants to find something, we don't have to teach him how to find it. He will find it. I have never seen in my life a dog that I will have to teach him how to find a cat. Them suckers always find a cat, although don't want them to find a cat. Here we are thinking that we have to teach them how to find an odor. No, we have to recognize what they like. We have to reinforce it, make the desire stronger, and then connect it to the odor. Once you do correct association between what they love more than their own life and the odor, you have the dogs that you saw on a video. They will search absolutely flawlessly for whatever they love. Got stuck here. So yes, here we go. Imprint and the odor. A lot of information, but I'm trying to give you all I have. Imprint and the odor. If you do, look, imprint and odor. The imprint and odor is nothing else but making association between two things, right? The thing he loves more than his own life. And again, then we have to go back to, does the dog have enough drive? Do we know how to build a drive if the dog doesn't? There are many ways how to build a drive, increase the drive. You have about 30% wiggle room on working with the drive. You can increase it or decrease it about 30%. So you can get even mediocre dog to a very decent level with his desire to search for something. But there might be another webinar how to properly build drive. So imprinting odor. Those that understand clicker, what is clicker? Clicker is association between sound and his natural desire for food, right? Click, food, click, food. Soon, when dog is getting food, the process in his brain, chemical process in the brain, starts, produce dopamines, all that stuff, right? Beautiful feeling. Very soon, by pairing, associating these two things, the clicker produces the chemical reaction in the brain and starts that beautiful feeling, even without the food. So this is the proper way how to imprint odors. If your dog is properly imprinted, the odor itself becomes the reward for him. The odor itself. So he's so excited finding the odor because we did proper connection between clicker and food, reward and ball. Reward and odor. That's another important thing, because if you have a dog, I'll tell you this, if you have a dog that is absolutely crazy for a ball, and you don't see that absolute craziness, the same level of desire to find a dope, like he desires to go for a ball or Kong or whatever reward, then your imprinting is not correct. Then you need to go back to imprinting and do it properly. Imprinting, yes, generalization.
So, Leos, there's a question about that has come up. So the question is, the gentleman has a puppy. He used to love the Kong and the ball, absolutely love it. As soon as he introduced the clicker with food, the dog stopped interest in the Kong completely.
As soon as he introduced clicker and food, the dog stopped being interested in the Kong.
Yeah, it lost its ball or Kong fascination after he introduced the clicker with food as reward.
Okay, so I need to know a little bit more info, but I can just give you rough rundown on what I think what's going on here, or what could be the options or possibilities what's going on. First of all, we have to understand what is prey draft. Prey draft is a tool to feed. Prey draft is desire to catch something, kill it, and eat it. So prey draft is a tool to feed. You can also see that puppies that are raised, and that's what we do in Europe, that puppies that are raised skinny and constantly desiring food and constantly hungry and constantly angry because they're hungry, their prey draft is going to be way higher than prey draft of a sibling that's raised in a pet family and it's got about 3 billion pounds overweight, like we see very often, right? Fat puppy is not going to have same prey draft as skinny puppy. My grandfather always told me when I was hungry, he goes like, no, hunger sharpens the instincts. You have ways to grow, so no food for you. And it worked. It works perfectly with puppies. I have very athletic puppies, and I'll give you an example. When I take a puppy from a litter, usually my puppies, whatever puppy I get, I can have last pick, it doesn't matter. My puppies usually are the strongest one, the fastest ones from the entire litter, because they live a Spartan life with me. So going back to answering that question, if the dog, I don't know what is the shape, whether it's getting saturated all the time, you have to understand that instincts are drives. Instincts are tools to survive. Once you bring your dog into comfort zone, he doesn't have the need to fight for his life, and instincts are kind of lowering. Remember, I said that instincts can be decreased or increased by about 30%. There's another thing. You have to understand there's a huge difference between prey drive and reaction to stimuli on nervous system. In other words, there's a prey drive that is a desire to catch something and hold on to it. And then there's a reaction to something that makes you nervous. Like if somebody's going to be driving fork on a plate, do that nasty squeaky sound, you automatically gonna grab that and say, don't do that. I hate that sound. Okay. So there's a lot of dogs that react to something moving. React to something moving by chasing it, stopping it. As soon as they get it, they just drop it and let it go. You have to understand what the difference between prey drive and stimuli to nervous system or reaction to something that irritates the dog. Huge difference. So by saturating the needs of the dog, if he's a clicker, I suppose they train quite a bit. He gets fat, he gets mental saturation, he gets physical saturation. That could do a lot. So my question would be, was it really prey drive, what you saw before? Because once you have a really pure prey drive, it's pretty impossible to get rid of it, okay? Like I said, you can decrease drive by 30%, but if he had at least 50% prey drive, there's still something left. Even if you go full-blown war on that drive, you still will not be able to get rid of it. So I hope that answers the question a little bit. What we can do, if the gentleman has a little bit more information, maybe a little short video, I can give him exact pointers what to do with the pup and how to change it. That answer?
And we've got a second question. How do you deal with false alerts? Do you wait the dog out until he moves on, or do you correct off the false with a leash correction or a verbal command?
Okay, so again, guys, here we go back to what I was trying to explain, but thank you for the question. That's a good question. What is a false alert? False alert is desire for the toy, right? False alert, that's one reason for false alert. Another reason for false alert is a way out of stress, out of frustration. Dog is getting confused, is getting frustrated, mentally tired. Sometimes, especially when you do long indoor searches, dog gets physically tired. I just had that today. We're building the dog here at Fayetteville PD. We are at 45-minute search, and a little over 45 minutes, the dog has false alerted. It was such a beautiful book example of false alert. He sits and starts looking at you. Whenever this dog finds an odor, he will not look at you. He will. You just saw that brindle Dutchie at the end of the video, the first video I was showing. That was him. So how he's focused. So again, after 45 minutes intensive search, and I'm talking about detailed search of seams and little details, 45 minutes. It's a very long search, very, very long search for the dog to be completely focused like this. But I just like to push limits and build something that's not regular. So yes, we're kind of playing with this. The dog got exhausted, totally exhausted, and he sat down false alerted. So again, frustration, it could be one of that. Physical exhaustion could be one of those. Another reason for false alert is, remember, at the beginning of this class, I said it's very important that you let the dog to learn on his own how to search for something he loves. First, you have to build his desire for, you have to build the cat that he's looking for. You have to build a cat. Once you have the cat, the dog will die just to find the cat. Then you go into letting him learn by systematically choosing environments and choosing the placement of the reward that he's looking for. I have one rule: don't change the dog, change the environment. The dog will learn what to do. So don't push the dog, push the environment, and the dog will change. There's no better way when the dog learns on his own, just like they do in nature. No better way, because once the dog does it on his own, it's going to be there forever. And like I said, if you let the dog to learn on his own, the dog learns to ignore your body language, which is very important. There was, man, listen, like these crazy things like 6 foot lead, while you're doing searching with dog is just killing me. Because you're basically forcing yourself on the dog the whole time, and the dog has to pay attention. This is how he starts learning. He has to pay attention, because if he doesn't, what you do, automatically jerking. Now you're pushing your finger in his face all the time, pushing the dog around all the time. So the dog basically, if he wants to survive the training with you on the detection, he has to follow what you're doing. Well, you just got a dog that's going to be paying to hell the attention to you the whole time. Well, now you have a dog that is looking at you 50% time and don't really have time to focus on what he needs to be doing. Later on, when dog is trained and established, you bring yourself into the equation. Absolutely. We do lead dogs on search, but that is already dog that understands what he's doing. I can show you another video here real quick as we actually speak. That's going to show you where dog is working independently, and I step in every once in a while to direct the search or make sure that he didn't miss anything. Just work together. Here we go. Here's the video. Look at it, and you'll see when dog is working on his own. Let him work on his own. I need to step in, show him a detail. Let him work on his own. Just so you know, this was, I think guys from Department of Homeland Security were testing me. They placed an order for me somewhere. And this was, although this is Finn, my dog, it's a narcotic detection. There was a bomb explosive detection seminar I was doing up in Ohio. So hopefully this kind of makes sense when you see the dog has his own desire to find it. I don't have to be asking him or leading him or do anything. Okay, hopefully that made sense. So again, just do a little recap on the false alerting. Once the dog is looking for the final product, which is, hold on 1 second. One second, let me stop this. Okay, once the dog desires to find the final product, which is the odor, he will have zero desire to false alert. Problem is that with the way we teach them, that means boxes, being close to the dog, never develop the desire for the odor, but rather make it all about the reward and our guidance, is what causes the false alert. So get rid of the dependency on you, like I just explained. Make sure that you imprint the odor properly, and trust me, I have seen maybe just dogs that I could count on one hand that were top-notch performers, but every time any department I come to, I re-imprint odors on all dogs. Re-imprint odors. You have to understand there's a huge difference between recognizing the odor and an odor actually causing chemical reaction and producing happiness. Those are two different things. So although you have a dog that does recognize odor, it doesn't mean that finding an odor makes him happy. Two different things. So value of the odor, the final product, independence on you, understanding of your body language, so the dog is not distracted by your body language. Generalization, that means that every place, every situation, every area means the same thing to the dog. Is the only way that you're gonna get rid of false alert. You'll have trainers that will tell you, well, wait him out or jerk him or use an e-collar. All that is just putting a Band-Aid over a problem. It's not solving the roots where the false alert came from. It solves momentarily situation on a vehicle or in the area, but it does not solve the problem where it's coming from. The only way you're gonna get rid of it really is what I just said. Another thing important is if you have false alerts, I promise you have another problem. And that is looking for small amount of odor or residuals in general. If dog false alerts, he is not focused enough on small amount of odors, not in operational environment. He might be able to detect it in a training environment, but you have to understand that his mind is led by the training environment. His mind is distracted completely in the operational environment if you do the standard regular trainings. So if your dog false alerts, you have two issues, not only one. I'm gonna throw out there, I don't know how we are on the time. We're getting close. So I'm gonna throw out there one important thing, guys, and that is sequence of training, narcotic detection, and specifically final alert. So I'm gonna give you my sequence, how I train dogs on narcotic detection. As a matter of fact, this goes for both narcotic and explosives. So first, I do communication, and I explained you why. Because every manipulation with the dog that does not make sense to the dog is putting bad taste in his mouth about doing whatever you're just doing. You have to try to accomplish that whatever you're doing, it produces happiness for the dog, the joy, the chemical reaction, because the activity of searching should be the main drive for the dog. Look at my dog. I posted just recently, I don't know, I don't have it here on YouTube, and I don't know how to play it, how to share it on the screen. But if you go to my Facebook, you'll see just recently, I let my dog on a parking lot, anywhere it is, and then sucker starts sniffing the heck out of every single vehicle on that parking lot. I have a problem to actually break my dog, because if any vehicle is going to be around, the dog's going to go sniff it. So communication, very important. Then building the desire for the reward, establishing what reward it is, and then building it. A lot of people think that they already have that done by getting the dog. Look, there are definitely some strong dogs coming from overseas, but it's about 30%, and the rest of the 70% are mediocre dogs. So building the drive is very, very important before you even start doing any detection. Why? Because of course you're in AC room, everything is cool, everything is peachy. You're running your dogs, it's fun, no stress. But once you put the load on a dog of riding around all night long, pulling him up all day long, all night long, it doesn't matter, then pulling him out into 90 degrees. Now you are acting totally different, because your mind is all over the place, thinking about a traffic stop, thinking about everything. Your mind is not there for the dog. Your mind is all over. You already putting pressure on the dog. Now the distractions, now all of a sudden, all that pressure on the dog will get rid of about 50% of drive on the dog momentarily, due to the pressure, due to the frustration, all that stuff. So that's why it's so important to understand clarity, but also how to build a drive. Because if you have medium driven dog in a training, it's going to be even way worse on the street in a real deployment. So building the drive for that, then searching pattern. So building the search, the dog on his own, searching pattern, very important. How there's probably going to be guys and asking, how are you going to teach searching pattern if you didn't imprint odor yet? Let me tell you the whole process, and I will explain real quick why I do it differently than anyone else. So building the drive. Second, letting the dog learn how to search. That immediately follows with searching pattern. Because if you saw those dogs on those videos after 4 weeks rebuilding the dog has its own searching pattern. And I will play you another video here real quick. That's another dog. I got completely green, and this is what he looked like after a few weeks of training. Right. So just so you know, this dog right now, he's been imprinted on an odor 3 days only. 3 days. He's been in a training for detection for 3 weeks, but only 3 days has he been imprinted on odor. Okay. So communication, building the drive for the reward, search on his own, which creates his independence, his desire to search. It teaches him how to use the nose, teaches him to calm the mind down, and they very often develop pattern on their own. Very rarely I have to interfere with dogs. They usually develop their pattern on their own. Then when I have all this, I go to final indication, final alert. Okay, still no odor. Now, why I don't do odor already? I'm teaching a final alert. Why is that? I will tell you why. Because once you put your dog on an odor, then anything you do, we interfere with him and create even slightest miscommunication with the dog that's going to give him bitter taste in his mouth about anything. You're already connecting that to the odor. So in other words, I do all my dirty laundry with that dog before I put the odor in. Because I've seen so many times that people have odors in the boxes, already imprinted dogs, and they walk in and jerking the dogs around to teach them pattern. Now the dog is probably already slightly getting some of the odor because they can smell the odor already coming into the room. So you're jerking them around, they get all disgusted by you, hate it. At that moment, this is no fun. And now they come to the odor. All that bad stuff that was just in front of the odor makes them hate to look for the odor. Or the bad stuff is connected to the odor. That's why I do everything to perfection. And when dog now understands search pattern, final alert, endurance is done, then I put odor on. Once I imprint odor, connect odor with the beautiful feeling of getting reward becomes one. Now we have odor is actually wow, that wow thing, right? Chemical reaction in the brain. And then you just connect the rest of the chain and boom, it's right there. And nothing will ever mess with the beauty and the sexiness of the odor.
So Leos, there's a couple of questions have come up.
Okay.
So one of them is the exercise you discussed with the ball and the room search. How would you set that exercise up and how would you build from it?
Okay, one more time. How would you what? How would you do what?
How would you set that exercise up, and how would you build from that?
Okay, so like, listen, guys, this is again the beauty. You got to be dog man to be good trainer. So I don't actually set up exercise know-how. I always have my dogs with me in my car, and no matter where I pull, where I stop, I get out of the car, I put the ball somewhere, and I take the dog, and we just go around. So on parking lot, put the ball behind a first tire on the ground vehicle, right? You're letting your dog out to piss. Well, before I stop the vehicle, I make a circle, throw a ball out of the window so the dog doesn't see it. That goes into a brush. Then I'll let him go piss. Guess what the dog does? He's running about to piss. Boom! He's got that odor. Ball. So then this is building the desire. This is building the mindset. I need to get out of the car because there is a ball somewhere. I'm gonna find it. Then you go into a room. Again, it must be first very easy because you are charging or creating that situational signal connected to a success and happiness. So first, it's going to be very, very easy. It's going to be around the corner, around the door, behind a cabinet, right? Then next step is going to be maybe a drawer. It's going to be halfway open drawer. The ball's going to be hidden in the back. So the drawer is open, but you still can't see the ball. You put it under a blanket, or the size of the room must be appropriate to nervous system of the dog and his ability to sniff. Size of the room plays huge role, especially when you're working with dogs that are fast nervous system. Gradually, you making the odor less and less available. So if I put it in the drawer and completely close it, it's going to be a whole different deal, way less available than if it lays on the ground just around the corner. Then again, what's another thing important is that when I said search pattern, same thing. You're teaching the dog when he gets in a room, you teach him either burn through the room to the wall with the boxes, or you teach the dog that searching point starts at the doorway, right? That's where I want to be already calm and already sniffing left, right corner, and then pick up what I'm going to the left or to the right. I should have done the video, but my dog starts searching. He runs. I have 3 levels of search: a screening, directional, and detail. Screening is the dog basically run a big loop around the room, shopping for a huge odor, because if there's a huge odor, I don't need to momentarily do detailed search unless we decide to do a secondary search. But then you have directional and detail. It's a long to explain right now. But by placing that ball to be less and less available is how you expand in the time, the size of the room, whether it's an office, whether it's a gym, whether it's a huge warehouse. You have an unbelievable level of scale. You have unbelievable scale of difficulty that you are using for the dog. Building at the beginning, making it a small room available, and then you going down lower on that availability of the odor, and then you expanding the footprint of the room, bigger and bigger rooms, and that's where you get up to 45 minutes, an hour of search. especially for bomb detection dogs. That's where you need to be. I myself push dogs. I push dogs for narcotic detection too, because it only makes them better, and that's what I do. I love to do it. So yeah, placement, and then again, if you do low highs, it's all where you place the odor. So how would I place, or how would I set up the room? It depends where your dog is right now. How old is he? What is he already trained, not trained? I would definitely go back to this exercise for every single dog out there. I don't care how good they are. This will always make your dog better. And it's a great exercise for physique too, for processing the sniff. The dog sniffs is very difficult for the dogs. If you ever saw a dog tracking, that it gets him way more tired than biting. When dog bites, he bounces back in 30 minutes. When dog does a really good track, it makes him sleep for a day. So training that processing the odor in his head, it's also another really important thing.
Okay, so next question from Nige is, on the other end of the spectrum to false alerts, have you heard of dogs detecting a target odor but not alert to it, so to continue the game, and how would you overcome that?
So yeah, that's what I just mentioned just recently, and I mentioned it before here today, and I see it actually very often on dogs that are trained on sores. People always go like, "Oh yeah, this is cool. Everybody does that. So this is how we're gonna train right now." So dogs that only train on sores, that means that there's a choke point where the odor is coming out of, and the dog can put his nose on that choke point, whether it's seam or hole or whatever that is. Especially sniffing walls are very, very sensitive to teach the dog, find a source, put the nose into it, and that's it. So yeah, I've seen very often, I see dogs that are trained on sores, but then they have only general odor, which means I just told you, for example, motor, the engine area, if you're going to have that odor, and the odor is coming from all sides, from everywhere, the dog is running around the front and cannot find a source. And he does it 2, 3, 4 times. And then he decides to keep searching. Now he starts circulating around the back and circle back. I'll circle back on that. And then he's going to start going to the back and completely gives up. Although you saw an obvious change of behavior, bracketing, like the dog, you can tell 100% the dog is in the odor. He smells the odor. But because he cannot find a source, he actually leaves the odor and starts looking for his source. So I've seen that a lot. I never saw a dog that would leave the odor because he wants the game to continue. But I see very often what I just said.
Next question is from Leanne. Do you use an article or toy for juiced?
Do I use what?
Do you use an article or toy for all searches before odor is introduced?
Do I use article or toy for searches? You cutting out, on my apologies, but you cutting out, so I couldn't really make out what you were saying at the end.
Do you use an article or toy for all searches before odor is introduced?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I'm not really sure what if I'm understanding the question correctly. Maybe I need to maybe clarify. So yeah, that's what the dog is looking for, right? Like I said, the dog is looking for whatever his desired target is, whether it's some people doing plastic pipe, some people are doing a hose, or some people are doing ball, Kong, fire hose. I've seen all kinds of things being used. And yeah, so yeah, whatever you build your dog for, again, dogs are not born, they are not born puppies say, yo, I think I'm gonna be in love with fire hose. Yeah, are we clear on that? It doesn't work like that. You build your dog on whatever you want. And if he comes from Europe to be to build on, it doesn't really matter. Prey drive is a prey drive. You can build him in whatever you want. So I always build them on what is most convenient to me operationally. And that's what the dog is looking for, because that's the thing that I'm going to be connecting to the odor. I don't really like, there's a lot of people also, man, like I said, it's not enough time. I'd like to also talk about the tug of war that guys are doing on detection. I wish I could explain how it hurts you on detection, but that's another 15 minutes of explaining. I don't think we have the time on that. So yes, the answer to the question is yes, they are searching for a toy before I imprint the odor.
So next question is, what is your recommendation for aggressive alerts and how do you prevent them?
So every single dog I train for law enforcement are passive alert. We don't do aggressive alerts anymore. As you saw my dog, though, my dog is aggressive alert, and I left it that way. I can get rid of it. It takes only 2-3 trainings and he would be passive alert. I just love it. So the aggressive alert has some benefits, and it has some pros. Aggressive alert dog will never false alert. It has a lot of good stuff that comes in, obviously bad stuff in our environment right now. So every single dog I train for law enforcement is passive alert. If you have aggressive alert dog, it's very simple to change it into passive alert. So whoever asked the question, if you want to send me a video of your dog, I can tell you in just very short text or very short phone call how to change it into passive alert. As a matter of fact, I had guys at the Las Vegas conference from I think state troopers. They came with the same problem. We fixed it literally in 15 minutes. And until today, they have very nice passive alert with focus look on that object. And it took only 15 minutes. So it's very easy to fix it. It might be a little bit more difficult to just tell you, because when I do it, I do a lot of things at the same time, but I can still help you to change it with any problems.
Okay, next one is a young puppy, super drivey, but when you take it in to do detection, the dog just can't calm itself down. It's all like it gets on odor really well, indicates, but the body just doesn't sit still.
Okay. So would you happen to know if the dog is food driven or prey driven? I'm sorry, food reward or prey reward?
At the moment, I'm using food reward.
Okay. So here is the thing. Okay. you have to, and just like I said in this class before, there is several engines, drives, not really drive is an instinct, but there are several things that have huge effect on the performance on the dog, which one of them is the drive itself of the reward that you're using, whether it's ball, so it's going to be prey drive, whether it's food, it's going to be food drive. Another thing is frustration. What is frustration? Frustration is desire for something but not being able to get it. Okay. And then third thing is a power of anticipation. Power of anticipation is a huge driving force. People do not recognize it, especially if you have food-driven dogs. And they have very good food drive. Their anticipation is going to be through the roof, especially once they realize what the game is about. Okay. So my suggestion is that you have to be very careful about his initial desire for that reward. If you bring the dog hungry, he's going to go through the roof with that behavior. If he's going to be food saturated with the food, that behavior is going to be a little bit less. What you have to do is you have to start doing generalization, because he is so familiar with the game that you're doing. I'm just going to throw a wild guess here. You doing the detection in a familiar place to him. He's been doing it there several times. Am I correct?
Yes. Yes.
And that's what builds the anticipation. At that moment, it's the same thing. Like if you're going to be feeding your dog every day at 7 p.m. And you're going to have the same ritual. You're going to go through the kitchen. You're going to go to your pantry, open the door from the pantry, dig out for the kibbles and put it in the bowl for the dog. The whole time the dog is watching you. Well, very shortly, animals learn of pattern. So very shortly, the dog sees it. And as soon as you start going towards the pantry, the dogs start going nuts. That's the anticipation. That's exactly how clicker works. Connecting two things until one becomes same value as the other one. Same thing when you rewarding your dog. What is the actual reward with the dog when you're reaching out for your ball and throwing the ball? You reaching out into the pocket is already the reward, because he is in situational signal in a situation that he's seen many, many times. So with your dog, you have to start. Look, good training of animal is creating pattern and then breaking the pattern. Pattern is how animals learn, but pattern is also what's going to hurt you in the training. Right now, you have to start breaking the pattern and be careful with breaking pattern, which means generalization, changing areas, changing difficulty. There's going to be, everything you do right now has to be variable. So the dog cannot predict. If dog cannot predict, the anticipation will go down. And then, of course, level of the desired reward must be controlled.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Does anyone else have any questions? Feel free to unmute your mic or type them in the chat.
No, lots of headaches out there already. So
so one of the text questions is, can you do another session?
Can I do another session?
Yeah, I think we've got 3 or 4 more lined up, I think, don't we?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Whatever. I mean, it's up to you guys, whatever you want to do. I'll be more than happy to pass on that little I know. I'll share it with you.
So we have another question from Brian. Can you explain really quick why Tug is bad for detection?
Yes, absolutely. Good question. I'm actually glad you reacted to it. So we have just spoke about how important it is to create the odor, the ultimate reward, right? Like with clicker training, the click is the ultimate reward, not the food, but the click. The click is what produces the dopamine, the hormone of joy in your brain. Same thing when I was talking about imprinting the odor. If you imprint it correctly, the actual reward is finding that odor. So check this out. If I want the odor be the best thing to him that happened to him that day, because only then you are accomplishing that odor is the real deal for the dog. Odor is the most exciting thing that happened to him. Everything else was boring. And he cannot wait to find the odor again, right? So imagine that he finds odor, and then you start something the dog loves above everything else. And that's a war, that's fighting and winning. So you do all this, wow, and he wins. He goes like, yeah, I won my talk. Here we go. What my question is, in that few minutes, what was the most exciting thing that just happened to him that day? That was the tug of war and him winning his tug. So finding an odor is already number 2. For me, I want for my dog to find an odor to be number 1. Hopefully that answered the question.
Do we have any more questions? Let me have a quick look.
Brian, hopefully that answered your question. But again, it's all about emotions, guys. I'll tell you, look, I'll give you a real quick story. I don't know if everybody logged out yet or not. I'll give you a real quick story, real quick. If you go down the street with your dog breaking him, just walking your dog, and you come up to a dumpster, a cat takes from behind the dumpster, right? Dog gets all excited or crazy, want to go kill the cat. Okay, no problem. You make it all the way home and everything is good. A week later, you go down the street again. You done forgot about everything that happened a week ago. You coming up to the dumpster, and what does the dog do? Hey, I remember there was a cat. Where's the cat? Looking for the cat. What does that tell you? Only one strong experience is what it takes for the dog to learn and remember the emotions he had at the moment. That's why it's so important that your targeted exercise, odor, or whatever that is the strongest emotion received.
One more question from Robert. For operational purposes, do you train generalization and discrimination with a detection dog? Would you like me to repeat that?
I'm not really sure what means generalization. You have to do generalization. Generalization means that you do one exercise in different setups, different environments. That's generalization. That means, like I said, when you're teaching lay down, you teach in front of you, but then you have to teach lay down on distance, lay down on stairs, and the dog will not understand first what happened. So you go back to explaining, and then the dog understands that lay down is any given moment. Then he actually understands lay down is drop your body down wherever you are, whatever you do. That's generalization. So Generalization in detection is what we were talking about here the whole class. It's absolutely crucial. That's where all our problems are. People are training in their training environments or in their vendors, barns, running those boxes on the wall. But that's a teaching the dog to recognize the odor. It has nothing to do with desire to search on the street. Those are two completely different things. So generalizations is absolutely crucial. Without generalization, you don't have no solid training or no solid performance in any given place. You will not create that desire to hunt for the dope, for the odor at any given situation. Something will always be a little bit more for the dog if you do not do the proper draft build, desire for the reward. That's the Drbohlav said. Searching patterns and all that stuff. If you don't re-explain that basic stuff in different environments and different places, I don't care how much your dog recognizes the odor, and I don't care how much your dog will be jumping from can to can, going into a circle, or having those sniffing wheels, or running walls. I don't care how much you run those. But if you don't do properly the generalization while you're building the draft, your dog will only recognize odors, but will never be a monster in searching. And searching means a desire to go out there and dig it out from wherever it is, regardless of what's going on around you. That's searching. Recognizing his odor is when you bring a dog, stuff it down his nose, and he'll tell you, yeah, I recognize this. Okay, I'm gonna sit. That's two different things.
And the next question from Leanne is, on the topic of Tug being bad, how would you introduce this as the reward to keep the odor the number one thing?
So no problem. Okay, if you necessarily want to use tugs, if you necessarily want to have to use tugs, then you have to use tugs as object. Basically, you have to treat the tug same way as you treat the ball. Dog is trying to eat my back. So I will have, just like you have two balls and throwing balls left, throw one ball, dog goes forward, brings it to me, throw another ball, basically doing exercise on that. Out in it, throwing it, holding it, dog comes and bam, snaps the ball. All that, same thing you can do with tug. What I would not do is the war of pulling on it. Because at that moment, check this out, guys. Prey drive would, if you have at least medium to moderate, medium, strong dog, what's going to be more for the dog? Playing with the ball or bite work? Bite work. And I will tell you why. Because bite work brings prey drive, but on the top of that, it brings aggression, whether it's natural or fear aggression, or activates nervous system a different way than than the ball. So you have another 2 extra drives when you're using biting. Pulling on the tug is basically activation of biting mode. Now we are fighting. So 3 drives compared to 1. Which one is going to give you more emotional experience? Of course, the war of tug, right? the biting was going to give you more emotional experience. So if you want to keep tugs, treat them just like you treat balls. The second dog grabs it, it's his. No interaction, no pulling, no activation of war or fight. If you have two tugs, treat it like a ball, give it to him, no problem. Then you will have, I'm snapping the paycheck. All right, cool, I got it, no problem. Does it make sense, Wayne?
It does to me. I'm just hoping it also answered Leanne's question.
Are you typing it? She cannot hear me?
Yeah, we can all hear you.
Okay.
A lot of the agencies wouldn't have mics at their location, so they're watching and typing. And Leanne said yes, thank you.
Awesome, thank you.
If anyone else has any questions, feel free to type them in. Yep, one's just come in. What if the dog just drops the ball and loses interest completely?
Yes, that's we talked about it at the beginning. You have to understand. So look, a lot of people will tell you that prey drive is one thing and then possession is another thing. I would argue on that a little bit because what people see as a prey drive is a combination, and you have to remember there's many instincts that work in one body and one mind. It's absolutely impossible that you think this is a prey drive and everything else is just died in his head and his instincts are completely dead. It doesn't work like that. Everything has always to do something with everything else. So what I explained from at the beginning is what seems to you as a prey drive might not necessarily be only prey drive. It could be reaction to irritation of nervous system. In other words, I was explaining something bothers you, you're going to grab it, stop it, just so it doesn't bother you anymore. A lot of this behavior is understood as a prey drive, but it has nothing to do with prey drive. So there are actually ways how to beautifully test how much there is a prey drive, how much there is a responsiveness or sensitivity of nervous system, those reaction to that, how much there is activation of aggression. And again, aggression is way more complex than people just believe they think. We can talk about it some other day. So if your dog is showing you that once it stops moving, he drops it, then you definitely have to start working on the drop. And again, Wayne, I don't know how much time we have, but maybe we could one day talk about how to build a drops because performance is always balanced between power, which is drops, and technique, which is understanding, clarity, and creative behaviors. That always have to be in balance, because if you have too much of one or another one, it will never work.
Okay, cool. This is not a question, it's just a comment. Sarah wrote, phenomenal examples and elaboration, as always, just a treat and great class.
Thank you.
John, I hope that answered your question. What else do we have? That looks about it. If anyone else has any questions, other super much. Okay, so we have a question from Robert. when imprinting for an odor, are you concerned with contamination by other odors? And if so, how important?
Okay, you cut it down a little bit. Can you repeat that, please?
Okay. When imprinting for an odor, are you concerned with contamination?
Okay,
by
so
other odors?
yeah, that's another thing, right? So what do we understand as contamination? Yes, I am concerned about contamination. Yes or no? Yes and no. And I will explain it. So what do we understand contamination? What are we actually talking about when we say contamination? Contamination of another odor, or of course everything has an odor. I'm talking about I've seen these trainers. So some of these trainers, some really renowned companies are using like a cocktail, right? They put 4 odors into one and they imprint the dog on that. I don't do that. Never done it and never will. It's again, it's like you trying to teach dog 3 different commands. It doesn't work like that. It's never gonna bring you the quality and the level you're looking for. So when it comes to more odors combined together, when it comes to me, absolutely not. Absolutely not. As a matter of fact, in explosives, I actually trying to break those odors all the way down to chemicals to imprint that. And I've done it probably 8 years that way, and 4 years ago I just discovered that FBI is doing the same way. And so when it comes to contamination with our own hands, good question. So I don't use latex gloves or any kind of gloves. Why not? Because those gloves have very strong odor. Basically, to me, they smell the same way like a Kong. So you basically rubbing off a Kong on your dope. That's why I never use gloves. I don't use it because it's kind of lead. So even if later on you take gloves and you do discrimination, like before someone else asked if I do the discrimination, I do sometimes. I usually do it when if I find something, the dog is alerted to something. But if you do imprinting properly, I've never had a dog to alert to anything else. But yes, obviously you have to have process for teaching discrimination. What I do discrimination is, for example, female in heat. All right, I take the odor of female in heat and make sure the dog is totally immune to that. That's discrimination, for example. Those that are looking for certain type of pills, you have to do discrimination because fillers are in every pill, especially prison services, right? Discrimination is very important. Unless you just don't care what you find, you want to find whatever. But yes, you should know and understand the process of discrimination. And some agencies, especially federal agencies, should do explosive detection. Same thing. If there is anything important on explosives, it's discrimination. There are so many chemicals out there that will be in explosives that are also displayed in regular world. And you do not need your dog to be sitting down on chemicals that are available in regular life. When dog sits down, evacuate. So you need to be 100% sure he's not sitting down to anything else but the explosives. Shoot, man, what was the question? I forgot. Hey, Wayne.
Yeah, hang on. I'm trying to scroll back through and find it. When imprinting for odor, are you concerned with contamination by other odors?
Okay.
And if so, how important is separation?
Okay, so going back, I don't use gloves. I use stainless steel tongs, right? like a barbecue or whatever, grilling, that's what I use to place the odor. But at some point of the training, I actually have contaminated odors too, where I touch it with my hand, put it out, and then after that, all you have to do is touch everything else, obviously not with the hand that you touch the odor, but elbows, whatever, drop your scent on everything else around you, right? So contamination, having a pure odors, non-contaminated, it's important for imprinting, but there will be no odor ever without any contamination in the real world. I don't think that there's anybody out there that would believe that drug users and drug dealers never touch that stuff, right? So it will be contaminated with all kinds of things. Doesn't really matter. When you imprinting, make sure you're imprinting on something clean. Also, when it comes to odors, I am trying to use stuff that we find on the street. So having imprinting odors from DEA that are very pure, cool, but I've seen many times that then the dog came to a meth from the street and was all confused. So important also, make sure you are sniffing all kinds of different odors. Seized on the street, DEA, whatever that is, make sure you rotate it. Imprint on clean stuff, but train with contaminated stuff. Make sure that the contamination, if it comes from you, it's rubbed on everything else around too. That's right there. If my odor is on the dope, my odor is on a drawer, my odor is on the door, my odor is everywhere. Now there's only one different thing from those places all I touched, and that's going to be the odor of narcotics. There you go. There's your isolation or discrimination of the odor.
Okay. Do we have any more questions? If anyone does, just type them in. All right. I think we might call it here, Leos, for today. Like to thank you. Thank everyone for joining in. Was awesome to sit through. And yeah, if anyone wants to contact Leos directly, I will put a link to his contact details in the bottom of the event page.
Thank you, everybody, for bearing with me. Sorry for my language. I know it's still rough, but hopefully I gave you some pointers. If not, sorry for wasting your time, and stay safe out there.